All right, go ahead.
All right, well, Peter, thank you. A little housekeeping. Obviously, I want to thank the folks here at the Babe Ruth Birthplace and Museum, as well as the Baltimore chapter of the Society of American Baseball Research for hosting the program. And certainly want to again thank Peter for putting the event together. Whether you are here watching me live, or if you're going to be hearing this program via video recording after the fact, I promise you this, it's going to be a real eye-opener. So, let's start. A lot of people do not know that in May of 1980, the union representing current ball players, the Major League Baseball Players Association, otherwise referred to as the MLBPA, let the league know that they would strike unless their demands and grievances were met regarding a new collective bargaining agreement, or as we call it, the CBA. The hot button issue at the time was the number of players a club could protect on its roster to compensate for those players that had been lost to free agency. The union wanted to protect 30 players on a 40-man roster. The league only wanted to protect 15 players. Now, the strike was averted before Memorial Day weekend when the late Ray Gariby, who was the negotiator for the league, and I want to say he was the former air traffic controller for the Reagan administration, he approached the late, great labor economist Marvin Miller, who was the head of the players' union, and made him the following offer, and it was one, trust me, that he could not refuse. You call off your strike, said Mr. Gravy, and we'll reward your rank and file by lowering the eligibility rules that a player needed to be vested into the pension plan from 4 years to just 43 days of service on an MLB roster. Previously, a man had to play 5 years to be vested for a pension, but in 1968, that was lowered to 4 years, principally to allow Hall of Famer Satchel Paige to qualify for a pension with the Atlanta Braves. So here's the problem with reducing the time you needed to be eligible for a pension. The agreement did not retroactively include the pre-1980 players. Some of the ones you're going to hear me talk about are Hal Kurtz, Gene Heiser, and most notably Bullet Bob Reynolds, who played for the Orioles from 1972 to 1975. He appeared during that time in 106 games for the Orioles, won 14 of them, and statistically his best year with that club was in 73 when he had a sterling earned run average of 195 in 42 appearances. Now, if you don't remember Bob, okay, well, let me tell you about him. He was a #1 draft pick of the San Francisco Giants. He broke in with the Montreal Expos, and besides his years in Baltimore, he also played for the Cardinals and the Brewers in 1971, the Detroit Tigers, and the Cleveland Indians in 1975. With all that time, you would think that he would have had 4 years of credit. For his career, he appeared in a total of 140 games, but that service credit was spread out over parts of 6 seasons. In 254 innings, like I said, he collected 14 victories. He also had 21 saves. And for his career, he had a lifetime earned run average of 3.15. Again, even though he appeared in roughly 3 years and 130 days, that's his service credit that was spread out over 6 seasons, he still finished 34 games shy of eligibility for an MLB pension. Now, as I already mentioned, due to the sweetheart of a deal that averted the strike, if a current Oriole, like, for example, Sam Basile, your catcher, designated hitter, first baseman, he only made his debut last month on August 17th. If he stays on the roster until, realistically October 1st when the season finishes, he'll be eligible for a pension. despite having way less time than Bullet Bob Reynolds. Now, I ask you all, where's the fairness in that? Besides getting the vesting eligibility reduced to a mere 43 games, and that's basically 6 weeks of service time on an MLB roster, the union did win other key concessions. The minimum salary rose to $30,000 in 1980, then $32,500, $33,500, and $35,000 over the final 3 years of the pact. The eligibility for salary arbitration was reduced from 3 baseball years to 2, and the owners would also contribute $15.5 million a year to the pension fund. But the union lost its proposal for reducing the amount of regular season games to be played, and what started the whole, dispute in the first place, the thorny issue of direct compensation, well, that was tabled for a year. Now, when I interviewed the late Mr. Miller, for his book, he actually admitted that he had entertained the idea of trying to change the vesting requirements so that the pre-80 players like Bullet Bob Reynolds could be included. But, and I quote, "The plain truth is we weren't ever going to refuse management's offer of instant pension eligibility. That wouldn't have been in the best interests of our union back then." And when I did a follow-up question that said, "Did you think the owners negotiator, Ray Gariby, was trying to divide the union?" He unequivocally said, "Yeah, Mr. Gariby and the owners were trying to buy us off with this eligibility plan." I absolutely concur with your statement. So that's the way things have been for the last 45 years. And I'll be the first one to acknowledge that it's a great deal for any player post-1980. In fact, only today, the Orioles' Jeremiah Jackson, the great center fielder with, I think, an on-base percentage of .890. Well, his first game was with the Orioles on August 1. So literally today, he has his 43 game days of service on an MLB roster, and he's automatically vested for a pension. Again, I want to reinforce this. It's days on a MLB roster, not how many games you appear in, that count towards a pension. The Orioles relief pitcher, Yanier Cano, he can maybe only toe the rubber 75 times a year, but he's not getting 75 days of service credit. He's getting a full season of credit. So in essence, Bob Reynolds is being penalized because he played prior to 1980. Let me give you an example to show the true inequity here. Former MLB pitcher Jim Dorsey receives an MLB pension for appearing in a total of 8 games and only pitching 23 2/3 innings. He qualified for that because he appeared in 4 games for the then California Angels in 1980 and 2 games each for the Boston Red Sox in 84 and 85. Again, way less than Bullet Bob Reynolds. It took 32 years for the union and the league to agree to do something to remedy this reprehensible situation. Almost a year after my book came out in April 2012, the union and the league announced with a lot of fanfare that the men like Bullet would begin receiving annual pensions based on a convoluted formula that had to be concocted, in my opinion, by an actuary. The payments these men receive are paid out of what is called the Steinbrenner luxury tax. That's, euphemistically what old-timers like I call it. It's actually known as the competitive balance tax. The tax is slapped on a team whenever they exceed the agreed-upon payroll threshold. So, for example, according to an AP report from this March 30th, the New York Mets, for the payroll calendar year of 2024, their payroll was $333.3 million. So the team, the Mets, were hit with a luxury tax bill of $93.1 million. And that was before they signed Juan Soto during the offseason. Beginning in 2012, each affected pre-19 player began receiving $625 for every 43 games of service credit they had, up to $10,000. 10 years later, in 2022, that formula was adjusted by 15%. So now Bullet Bob receives a whopping $718.75 for every 43 game days he was on a roster, up to $11,500 a year. Not a month, a year. Meanwhile, a vested retiree can receive up to $275,000 a year, according to the IRS, and the minimum salary this year is $760,000. Again, does any of this sound fair to you? Where is the equity? Now, I am a pro-union man. Unions advocate for all the hardworking men and women in this country and their families who are paying the taxes in this country. I've got no problem with unions. They support working stiffs like all of us. But in my opinion, this union, the MLBPA, is stiffing the pre-1980 players like Bullet Bob. In fact, according to ESPN, the average Major League Baseball salary this year is $5.1 million. And next year, the minimum salary that the 26th man riding the pines will make goes up to $780,000. When Bullet Bob Reynolds played, you were lucky if you made between $9,000 and $12,000. Even the staff at the union is making out like gangbusters. The executive director of the union, Tony Clark, the former ball player, receives a $3.25 million salary, according to the Associated Press. And the union's 2016 IRS filing, which, by the way, you can find it online, showed that 72 employees were paid $16 million in that calendar year. According to blogger and one of my friends and a fellow SABR member, Max Efkin, the Major League Baseball Players Pension Plan currently has $4.6 billion in assets with 9,670 participants. That is an increase of $400 million in assets with 177 fewer participants from 2022. Again, I ask you, what is wrong with this picture? By the way, I haven't mentioned the league because it's the union that has to go to bat for the retired pre-1980 players, because per the collective bargaining agreement, the league doesn't have to negotiate about this matter. Though MLB could step in at any time and do something about this, legally they do not have to. Despite their contributions to the game, MLB does not think that financially taking care of these pre-1980 ball players is important enough to cut a check. The league gives monies to a variety of projects and programs, but it isn't assisting its former employees. For instance, the league owners cut a $10 million check to support the Baseball Hall of Fame in 2017. That donation helped build up the Hall's endowment fund and support its exhibits. And obviously, while that was great, it's a gesture that basically, in my opinion, screams, we care more about relics than flesh and blood retirees. So it really is incumbent and falls on the union to take care of these men. But though the union also supports a myriad number of worthwhile projects, such as domestic violence initiatives or youth baseball programs in economically distressed neighborhoods, taking care of the pre-80 players really isn't a high priority agenda item for them. Instead, in my opinion, today's players and today's union leaders, including the aforementioned Tony Clark and his players' pension liaison, the one-time great Montreal Expo pitcher Steve Rogers, who I want to note was the National League players representative when this strike in 1980 was averted. They are getting fat at the expense of all those men who walked the picket lines, who endured labor stoppages and went without paychecks, also that free agency could occur. Also that someone like Juan Soto could sign a $765 million contract to play baseball for the next 15 years for the New York Mets. And you know what? Good for Juan. We're still living in a capitalist society. The more money today's players can get for themselves, the better. But let's have a little healthy respect for the players like Bullet Bob Reynolds, who came before Juan or Shohei Ohtani. There are approximately 501 of these pre-1980 players still living. Besides Bullet, other former Orioles impacted by this blight on the national pastime include Bill Dillman, who 58 years ago made his debut on April 18th, and he's living now in Cocoa Beach, Florida. He played for the Orioles in '67 and then the Montreal Expos in 1970. They also include one-time infielder Mickey McGuire, who played for the Orioles in both 1962 and 1967. He celebrated his 84th birthday this January, and before making it up to the show, he played 11 years in the minor leagues, including 9 in AAA, but minor league service is not creditable. Jim Hutto, one of the 3 Rochester Red Wing Hall of Famers. Now, I'm sure all of you remember Rochester at one point in time was a AAA affiliate of the Orioles. So Jim Hutto, Roy Al Stillman, and Jim Fuller, all those Rochester Red Wing Hall of Famers are impacted by this issue. Jimmy Hutto, in particular, underwent 6 back procedures, 6 knee surgeries, and 2 total knee replacements in his time in the game. He nearly died also from an aneurysm that his doctor said was most likely attributable to a severe blow to the head after having been in so many home plate collisions. He's not being helped. He coached, by the way, future Orioles infielder Billy Ripken in the organization's minor league system. But when he attempted to reach out to his former pupil for assistance, Jimmy told me that Ripken, who of course now works as an analyst for MLB Network, never got back to him. Former Orioles second baseman Harold Reynolds also works for MLB Network, and strangely enough, Harold has never said anything about this topic, though his older brother, former San Diego Padres outfielder Don Reynolds, is also impacted by this travesty. And let's not forget, because I promised you, a lot of the Maryland men affected by this issue. Church Hills, Maryland, I don't know where that is in relation to here. Harold Kurtz pitched for the Indians 28 times during the 1968 season. He made the club out of spring training that year, was on the team's roster until August 12th, when he made his final big league appearance. In 38 career innings, Mr. Kurtz, who turned 82 last month on August 20th, was credited with 1 victory and 1 save. So while he has more service credit, obviously, than Jackson or Basallo, all he receives is a gross payment every year of $2,400. They're going to get a pension, again. Basallo, and definitely effective today, Jackson, despite having way less service credit. And then there's my very good friend, Baltimore's own Gene Heiser, who attended Towson High School and was later inducted into University of Maryland's Athletic Hall of Fame in 2002. He was a Sporting News first-team All-American selection in 1970, when he was the MVP on the Maryland Terrapins' nationally ranked squad. He had a career slugging percentage of .551 when he played for the Terps. And during his junior and senior years, Gene was all ACC, and he also received the Berger Award as the top Terrapin. Upon graduation, he was a first-round draft pick for the Chicago Cubs. He was selected 19th overall in the 1970 amateur draft. An outfielder, again, as I said, during parts of the 71, 72, 73, 74, and 75 seasons, Gene appeared in 206 games during his career. He came up to the plate 263 times. He collected 53 hits including 7 doubles and 1 homer. He scored 34 runs and knocked in 18. Obviously, not Hall of Fame numbers, but he doesn't get a pension either, in spite of the fact that he has more service credit than someone like Jeremiah Jackson or Sam Basello. He also only made $12,175 during his rookie year. And again, today, the rookie salary for the last man on the bench is $760,000. Next year it goes up to $780,000. I am here today to plead with you, to those here in person, and to anyone who's seeing this program after the fact, that this blight on the national pastime has to end. See, I care about the little guy. I don't know how many of you watch Reacher on the streaming service, but as Jack Reacher says in the book Persuader by Lee Child, I just hate the big guy. I hate big, smug people who think they can get away with things. And that's why I am not fond of this union. And I'm especially not fond of Tony Clark. Once upon a time, Clark used to be known as Tony the Tiger, after the Frosted Flakes mascot. Now I just call him Teflon Tony, like the British press often referred to Prime Minister Tony Blair, because the bad press just doesn't stick to him, especially about this issue. Men such as Bullet Bob and Gene Heiser and Royal Stillman and Bill Dillman and Jim Hutto and Jim Fuller, Mickey McGuire, Hal Kurtz, they've been relegated, in my opinion, to baseball's garbage heap because of an unexceptional union leader. And when they go to that great baseball diamond in the sky, this bone that they're being thrown every February, it doesn't get passed to them. It doesn't get passed to their widows or their designated bennies. See, when Bob passes, and we really hope that is not for a very long time, neither his wife Lorna nor any of the couple's 6 kids will continue to get that annual bone. That's because it is technically not a pension. What he is receiving is called a non-qualified retirement annuity. What's the difference? When Sam Basello and Jeremiah Jackson pass, whoever their respective designated beneficiaries are will get a pension. But you know what? Karma's a bitch. As you may know, Teflon Tony and the union are reportedly being investigated right now, as we speak, by the Federal Bureau of Investigation in regards to a multi-billion-dollar group licensing firm started and owned, in part, by the NFL Players Union and the Major League Baseball Players Association. Whether that proves to be Teflon Tony's undoing is still to be seen. I just hope that somewhere deep down in his core, he finds it in his heart, once and for all, to do the right thing by the non-vested men, such as Gene Heiser and Bullet Bob Reynolds. I am also not fond at all of the sports writers and baseball columnists who have turned a blind eye to this issue. Now, I know the SABR chapter in Baltimore has a lot of, perhaps, media people on its list, but where are they? They're not here. If you've never read or heard about this dirty little secret, well, you blame the countless number of local journalists who have refused to write about it. All because they fear losing their precious access to the players, to the league, and to the union. Again, here in Baltimore alone, Peter Schmuck, he never wrote about it when he was a columnist for the Baltimore Sun. Neither has Rich Dobroff of BaltimoreBaseball.com. Neither has Dan Connolly, who used to tell me via instant message, I don't have to pick up your pitch. I don't have to write about anything that I don't want to write about. Believe me, it's not like I have not pitched over the years sports columnists, sports broadcasters, bloggers, I'm trying to get the word out about this topic, and in doing that, I've probably killed more trees than herbicides ever have. And only facetiously do I say that if Woodward and Bernstein had shown this same kind of cowardice, Nixon probably would have survived Watergate. When I started advocating for these men, I was just trying to help my childhood heroes to right a wrong that had been done to them. And now, back then I was a lone wolf, but today, besides Max Efkin, others who have joined me in this crusade include Jeff Coleman of the Internet Baseball Writers Association. And Jeff, if you're watching this, Godspeed, I hope you're all right, buddy. Blogger John Tubbs, baseball umpire Perry Barber, who spent nearly a half a century serving as an inspiration for a generation of girls and women, and former MLB player Kurt Bavakwa. You may have remembered him in the '84 World Series, Dirty Kurt. He now heads something called the MLB Retired Players Association. He established that because he was so tired of the way the MLBPA wasn't going to bat for men like him. See, Kurt is one of the 700 retired ball players who, though they get pensions, have not gotten a cost of living adjustment. Again, what's fair about that? So to those individuals, as anyone else that I may have left out, I thank you all for your efforts, both those already performed and those yet to come. If you want to see whether a certain player has been relegated to the dustbins of baseball history, you should visit Max Efkin's great site at www.bittercupbaseball.com. That's www.bittercupbaseball.com. Open up the multiple tab spreadsheet. It's organized by specific categories. He started, Max, first compiling this spreadsheet in 2022. It is a huge font of information. You can find out very easily all the Orioles and other members of other teams who were affected. And if you'd like, by any chance, to get involved, please write to Marcus Semien of the Texas Rangers or Chris Bassett of the Toronto Blue Jays. They are the highest ranking player reps on the union's executive committee, and just advise them to do something. That's Marcus Semien of the Texas Rangers and Chris Bassett of the Toronto Blue Jays. I guarantee you they don't know about this issue, because the people at the MLBPA, the leadership of the MLBPA, Tony Clark, Bruce Meyer, the very controversial lawyer who's in charge of collective bargaining, and Steve Rogers, are not telling them anything. I want to close by referencing something that was published 18 years ago. In a March 2007 post entitled Pension Benefits for Retired Pro Athletes, Mark Eisenberg wrote the following in his blog, which was called The Money Players. All professional athletes should keep in mind that they will be active voting members of the Players Association for just a few years, but they'll be retired players for decades. Reaching back to improve benefits of retired players, particularly those who literally sacrifice their bodies to help build professional sports into a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, is simply good business. These guys stood together often through very troubled labor negotiations, even striking on several occasions, in order to improve wages and benefits, not just for them, but for every player who has followed them. Fighting for former players sets an important precedent for future generations of professional athletes. Players take care of their own. Thank you for allowing me to visit with you today. Thank you if you're watching the recording, and I will gladly take any questions. Peter Coolbaugh.
With regard to the pension, I'm assuming since they were squeezed out of not getting a pension, they also don't get medical benefits.
That is correct. They do not. And as many a person who is vested in the pension plan has told me, yeah, it's a great plan, but it's very cost prohibitive. But as one of the stipulations of this brokered agreement, they are not allowed to buy into the health insurance plan.
They also didn't get any arrearages, I assume, when they started to collect what they are getting right now? Nothing from the prior years that they...
No, not at all. That's really a great question, because a lot of people have said, well, why don't they just go back to 1980? And I'm going to use 2006 as an example. Every Major League Baseball player, or pardon me, the average pension in 2006 was $36,000. So this young lady's question regarding that, let's say there are 501, let's say 500 ball players left. Pay them retroactive money, $36,000 a year, from 1980 through the next 45 years to make them whole. Even I have not advocated for that. That would break the coffers of Major League Baseball and the Major League Baseball Players' Pension Plan. Instead, what I've simply advocated for is the following. That payment that they get every February, up it to $15,000 a player. Let the players figure out what kind of withholding taxes they want, and then for a very limited finite time, say 3 to 5 years, let the widows and designated bennies of the late ball player continue to keep that payment, so it won't be an economic burden on those. But I have spoken to at least 4 women who say, Mr. Gladstone, please, you've got to do something about this. If they take away that bone, you know, we're up a creek without a paddle. And I said, I can't do anything about it for you. I can talk about the issue, but that's about it. If you just do that, pay them $15,000 a year moving forward, you know what the price tag would be? You can do the math right now with me. 501 ball players times $15,000 a year moving forward, $7,515,000. Now, that is chump change.
That's nothing. That's not even a ball player's salary.
Exactly. That is chump change in the grand economy of the scheme.
So if there's 501 of them,
Yes.
why don't they band together and find somebody to represent them?
Well, that is a great question. The organization that is supposed to advocate for retired alumni is a group called the Major League Baseball Players Alumni Association. They are based in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And their executive director is named Dan Foster. Now, I don't want to speak ill of people, but Dan Foster is not going to go take the lead on this issue. He was a former vice president with Major League Baseball Advanced Media. He's not rocking the boat. I will tell you this, and I wasn't going to mention this, but as long as this young lady did.
I didn't ask you to go there.
I wasn't going to mention.
I was actually very proud of you for not doing that.
Well, but
go
you
easy.
opened the can of worms.
Yeah,
You opened the can of worms.
No, go easy.
And I know it might be sacrilegious to say this in Baltimore, but the late Brooks Robinson was the former chairman of the board of directors of the Major League Baseball Players Alumni Association. I've met Brooks Robinson. He autographed a Baltimore Orioles cap from my father-in-law, and my father-in-law gave it to me. I have tremendous respect for Brooks Robinson as a ball player. As an advocate for retirees, no. Sorry. Brooks Robinson was a terrible advocate. And by the way, the current chairman of the Major League Baseball Players Alumni Association, Jim Tomei, he's already, not he, I'm sorry, I want to be careful of this. His wife has blocked me. His wife is a best-selling author, and she doesn't want me to talk to her husband about this issue. Let me tell you a great story about Brooks Robinson. I don't know how many of you know this one. In the minor leagues, it might have been in the Texas League in around 1955. He and Dave Roberts, no, not that Dave Roberts, not the manager of the Los Angeles Dodgers, the guy who stole that great, the base in 2004 to jumpstart the Red Sox comeback against the Yankees in the AL Championship. Brooks Robinson was a teammate of Dave Roberts, who was a Panamanian first baseman. And this Dave Roberts just passed, well, not just, Brooks passed away in 2022? 23. Dave Roberts passed away the year before. But they were both coming up in the Orioles organization in the Texas League. And back then, segregation was still a red-hot issue. And the only person who spoke up for Dave Roberts, the Panamanian ball player, was the late, great Brooks Robinson. Now, if you had, compassion and sympathy to take a stand against racism, why can't you, or why could you not, have compassion and sympathy for many of these ball players who you played with? Fuller, Jim Hutto, Roy Al Stillman, they were all, at some point or another, teammates of Brooks Robinson. Yet he didn't do anything. Again,
Do they have to go through that alumni association?
No, they
I
don't.
mean, they could have just gone together outside of that,
Sure.
is what I was thinking.
Sure.
Is where I was sort of heading, right? I mean, not everybody's a great business person, right?
The person who, the Houston chapter of this organization, SABR, I know it goes by a different name. I want to say
Larry Durker.
The Larry Durker chapter, thank you. Scipio Spinks, the extraordinarily talented pitcher, appeared before them. And, they tell a story that during a Major League Baseball Players Alumni Association meeting in Houston, I want to say Buzzy Bavasi, the former San Diego Padre general manager, stood up and appealed to these men, these alumni, and said, why are you guys not helping your band of brothers? I won't utter the expletive that was uttered back by Bobby Grich, but you can guess it. They need a leader. The logical one is David Clyde, my friend from Harris County, the great pitcher whose career was shortened because of arm difficulties and misuse. The contemporary version of David Clyde is Steven Strasburg, who retired last year. But most of these men, quite honestly, with the notable exception of people like Scipio and Gene and Gary Neibauer who pitched in the very first wild card series in 1969 for the Atlanta Braves. Most of these men, Tom Bruno, by the way, from South Dakota, pitched for both Missouri teams, the Kansas City Royals and hello there. Oh, we're a little late. This program began at 11 a.m.
Their website had it at 12.
Sorry. It's the standard time.
Well, where was I? So in any event,
So there's somebody that could take the mantle.
yeah, but most of these retired ball players have, well, not most of them, some of them have said to me, look, we're not a young Turk like you, Mr. Gladstone. We're just happy to, after any of these, after all this time, after 45 years, to get any amount of money.
Right.
And they don't want to rock the boat. So, it is left up to me because, I don't know, just like I said, I don't like smug, big people, and this union represents that. I'm very sorry that
They have to redo it.
that you came in late.
I do have another
I have
question.
a question, I have a
Sure, certainly.
Go ahead.
They averted the strike in
Yes.
80.
Yes,
They made this deal.
yes.
Then what were the issues behind the strike in 81 if they weren't?
That's not germane to this discussion.
Okay.
That 81 strike, if you recall, was the one that, I mean, they had congressional hearings.
Right. Split seasons.
Yeah,
Okay.
That
But
81
they-
strike is
that one was
completely
totally
different.
Okay.
everyone thinks that I'm always making an error. No, 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 it was 1981. No, trust me, it was 1980. So, yes.
So I'm trying to understand this. Each one of those players,
Mhm.
thousands of players get $15,000
No,
in federal.
No, that is what I am calling for.
Oh, that's what you're calling.
That's what I respectfully want them to get a year. Right now, let's say you're on the roster of a Major League Baseball team, okay? Even better. Let's use the analogy that I've been using. Jeremiah Jackson literally became vested in the pension plan today, okay? If Jeremiah Jackson and his 890 OPS do nothing else in his career, if he just stays on the roster till October 1 and plays no other time in the big leagues, he's getting a pension at the age of 62. It's a small pension because, let's face it, it's still predicated on final average salary and years of service. And if he just doesn't do anything else, he will get a pension, small pension, as I said, of approximately $4,800, a pension that will be allowed to be passed on to his widow or his children or whoever his designated beneficiary might be. That is not the case with any of these 501 men. When they die, that bone goes away. What I feel is fair, because I know of no person currently among this specific cohort who is getting the maximum $11,500. Remember, the payment was increased from $10,000 a year, $625 for every 43 game days on a roster, to $718.75 for every 43 game days on a roster, up to $11,500. I know of no person who qualifies for that maximum $11,500. In fact,
I mean, I'm looking at players that played back in the 60s.
right, that's what we're talking about. But we're also talking about players.
It's impossible.
We're talking, no, it's not impossible. We're talking about players who, on average, were making between $9,000 and $12,000. These were also players in the 70s, up to 1979. Gene Heiser's roommate, the great Carmen Fanzone. Maybe you've heard of him. He's very famous for playing the flugelhorn, and he's married to the Grammy-nominated recording artist Sue Rainey. Carmen's final salary in his last year was $36,500.
It's crazy to think it's all
That's,
been
yeah,
making in the
but
70s.
I see the element that's left out, and these are your brokers, the ones that would benefit from the contributions to a fund, and that's not in the picture.
No, it's
Why
not.
not? That would
Because
be-
the union, quite simply, does not have to. First of all, the league doesn't have to. The union isn't going to, how do I put this tactfully? Legally, these 501 men don't have a legal leg to stand on. They weren't vested, and the only argument I'm making is a moral one. I'm making a moral one that because the economy of baseball is so huge, you could certainly do better than throwing them a bone every February. You know, the first objective of of a union executive director is to take care of your union rank and file. And that's what Tony Clark has done. I can't fault Tony Clark for taking care of his rank and file, but I can fault him for not having the compassion and sympathy to take care of the men who walked the picket lines and went without paychecks and endured labor stoppages, all so that he could be a free agent 4 times. He signed free agent contracts with the Arizona Diamondbacks, the San Diego Padres, the New York Mets, and the New York Yankees. Tony Clark, more than anybody, knows about the contributions that the men like Gene Heiser, Bullet Bob Reynolds, and Bill Dillman made to baseball, and yet he doesn't want to honor that. He doesn't have to.
You're just not talking money here. You're just talking people, you're talking names. When you talk money, money moves. And you've got these kids out there that start out with nothing and they've got a dream. No, that's not in a big corporation like baseball. You don't bring in some 15-year-old to play for nothing and then have no pension. No, the wrong conversation is going on
Well,
here.
I'm sorry, I've lost you. What are you exactly saying?
No, I'm saying
That the current ball players should not be helping the ones who allowed free agency to happen? I'm trying to
I
understand
don't
what you're
get
saying.
that either. How are they helping?
Okay, if they would kick back more monies than they currently are through what I said was the competitive balance tax, that's what is funding these payments to the old timers. If they would kick back more than what they are currently doing, you could come up with $15,000 for every retiree who's affected by this matter.
I just am seeing a different way. It's hard work, but I just cannot fathom a corporation of this size with this many employees being baseball players not having that backup. Like some 17-year-old kid that's got a dream to play ball and he's risking injury and bad health and whatever, and he doesn't have a pension, he doesn't have health insurance. I'm finding it hard to believe. And if you can't do it, somebody needs to do it, like a group of brokers, a group of medical doctors that get together and say, this is what we support. And we supporting these young men who become older men, the young boys who become young men, who become older men. It's got to go outside of the names and the whatever. It's got to be.
It's gotta go outside of the morality, I think is what she's saying.
Exactly.
It's gotta come down to brass tacks.
Legally, they don't have to.
Oh, but there are workarounds.
No, legally, it doesn't have to be. And I'm the first one to admit that.
Well, you would think that the union has the capacity. The union has the capacity to hire those people. The union has the capacity to hire the people to come up with the dollars and cents. That's how you get to the organization.
But like, take your empathies, your sympathy to the brokers, to the insurance companies, to the pension companies. Take it to them, take it to the people that actually fund and they can create funds.
I'm not poo-pooing your idea. I think it's a fine idea. I think private entities, if they want to support this initiative, should. Here's the problem. It's not, private entities are doing it
On one-on-one basis.
for, yeah, and they're, you know, in 1997, Major League Baseball gave 30 Negro Leaguers and their wives lifetime health insurance. I find that extraordinary, and I don't say that lightly. It was the 50th anniversary of Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier, but they did a very nice thing. Obviously, the color of the skin of a lot of people precluded them from playing in the show. Major League Baseball did not have to do anything for those men. Those men did not have a contractual employment history with Major League Baseball, but Major League Baseball still funded health insurance for those 30 Negro Leaguers and their families. And you know what they did? They wrote it off as charitable contributions.
Yeah.
Okay, but hear me out.
Otherwise, it's tax.
Right, it's a tax write-off. While your idea is fundamentally sound, it won't be written into the collective bargaining negotiation. If Procter & Gamble or some other large conglomerate wants to set up a fund for these 501 men, as I've indicated, it will only cost $7,515,000 only. It's still a lot of money. They can, but it won't be part of the collective bargaining agreement. I want the union to take accountability and fund these men in the CBA. The CBA is up for renewal, I believe, next year in 2026. I want something in the CBA that will mean it's permanent.
But you just see all these people that are making money off of these players, and the concession dealers, the ticket sellers, there's percentages that could go into a fund.
You're right, it could.
And it would be corporate. Probably the thing is, it doesn't involve the union, only as being recipients of the money. So being the guiding point, the person to work with the corporation to better the union seems better than taking the union and complaining to the corporation about not taking care of the union. This is what I'm seeing right now, and it makes sense. And
how about this?
I think your point is well taken.
How about this? We agree to disagree.
yeah,
Okay? How about that?
yeah. Well, I'm not going to change anything. I'm seeing it.
Every
as it
person
is.
can change something. As a result of my advocacy and my writing of these two books, first one was issued in April 2011. The second iteration of the book was in 2019. I got these men, and I don't want to give myself a pat on the back. I don't want to give myself too much of a pat on the back because there are other people included in this initiative, in this effort. But these men were getting nothing. Nothing for 32 years. Then they got $10,000, and for the past 3 years, it is a maximum of $11,500. That is still woefully inadequate, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And you look at these college kids that are now making money off of the sales of uniforms, the T-shirts. They're going to be making more than a pro baseball player. And
Maybe.
That pro wants to be a pro, and he wants to be the best he can be. A college kid wants the money.
Well, I think they also want to follow their dream and play the sport that they have aspired to.
They won't do that because they're making more money doing what they're doing in college than.
Like I said, we agree to disagree.
Seriously, right now they're making a couple $1 million a year selling stuff online.
All right, well, that's not really the point of this forum today. You gentlemen came in late, I'm sorry for that. I will be more than happy to give you these remarks so you can hear it before the recording plays on the chapters.